Countdown has begun. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. All right, we got some new little hype music here that's going on. I see you guys. Y'all know when you hear that music, it is time to go. We are riding shotgun as usual. Let's go! Welcome! I hear you. I hear you. Okay, I hear you. Come on, guys. Let's get this year started right. Yes, we are riding shotgun. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. I know. Let my audience get really excited. Okay. Stop. Guys, welcome from the north, south, east, west, and all the rest, if you know what I'm saying. I know some of y'all saying, Cedric, we haven't seen you in a while, and I know it's been a while. I took a little break because we had our little, little Christmas action going on, holiday action going on, and but I'm so excited to kick off this new year. And I said to myself, I got to kick off this new year with someone who is, actually, he's a personal mentor of mine. And this guy, matter of fact, I got to do a drum roll when I intro him. Here's a drum roll. He's often imitated, but never quite duplicated. He's first to many around the world, but second to none. He's got some zip in his hips, some slide in his glide, and I got him over here right here by my side. Live, coming right at you to help you thrive, my friends. Get ready to applaud. This is none other than the capital T-H-E, Don Clark. Yes, it's that kind of show, y'all. I'm excited. Okay, stop. Okay, my applause. I know I say this quite often. I get excited, but when I got one of my favorite mentors in the house, and this guy here, he is so humble. I'm going to say that first of all. So I'm going to blow his horn a little bit. I'm going to toot it. a little bit for him. And then we're going to get into some things that I know that's going to help to give you guys some value. And I'm not going to, hey, without further ado, I'm not going to belabor this and drag it out and tease you. Well, I'm going to tease you along the way. But I guarantee you we're going to be giving you some nuggets that are going to be able to benefit you. And so I said, well, what could I start off with that would be really, really powerful for the viewing audience as I see them today? And here's one of them. I want to see if you can dance to my favorite song by way of a harmonica in a chair. You up for it?
I'm up for it. Let's hear it.
Here we go. A hidden talent. Guys, see, what I love so much about him is because he, as prestigious as he is in the minds of all of us who know him, he is not above having fun. Am I right when I say that?
I hope so.
But yeah, I see it now. So some people will be all, dignified and like, no, I can't just reduce myself to that in front of an audience. And they won't do that. So I know him. I don't know if you remember this, but I had an event over where we did at the Hilton Doubletree, and you were one of the speakers that I brought on stage.
Right.
And in between time, we would do our little hype thing and a little party action. So Don takes off his jacket, his suit coat, and he's out there in the aisles just, woo! And I'll never forget that. And I remember saying, when you do stuff like that, it gives other people permission to be okay with being having fun.
Yeah.
Would you not agree?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, and I saw that and I was like, man, that's why I love it. The done. Let me say hi to a few people that's signing on here, y'all. I know I like to give a little shout outs. The first person to log in today was Janelle Hawkins. Eaton, good welcome. Not sure where you're at, but I know you're here today. So Richie Morrell, welcome as well. Hey, Elizabeth Mayoral. I know I butchered that last name, but you're Pearl to me. You know that. Welcome. Hey, Ken Mida. I hope I got that name right. And Kenna Ballard. She says, you two are hilarious. Thanks for the giggles. Yes, we come here to be able to inspire, motivate, encourage, and education, make you laugh a little bit too. I like to use the term taller. We want to make him taller. He's checking out the character of my seat right now. We want to make you taller.
You're really invested in this chair.
Yes. It's funny because
it's a goodwill chair.
Yes, and it's serving its goodwill. It's funny, if you see my chair here, it's all like beat up from activity that I've had in it because it was imitation leather. I love the way it feels though. My wife keeps saying, that's exactly right. My wife keeps saying, go get a new one. I'm like, This one, I put a lot of time into this one. This one feels good. And it adds to the character of the studio. What do you think?
I think so. Yeah, it sure does.
Well, we're going to go with that. We're just going to go with that. Okay, guys, so I had a quick question. Welcome, first of all, for you guys. I had a quick question. I'm going to close this, make sure we got some good. Won't have too much light so we shine on here. A quick question. Now, a lot of you don't realize that this is actually not just a new year. This is a new decade.
A new decade.
And
that's important.
Exactly. And that adds to the significance of this transition of completing this rotation around the sun. I'm just going to say it that way. So I was talking to a good friend the other day, and I was telling him that, I've learned that great business people, not just in business period, but the business of life, they're really good at not looking at their goals as far as a year. They look out as far as a decade.
Right.
And so then they start setting, short range goals, mid range goals, right, and long range goals as well too. And I don't know, I want to get your take on how do you feel about goals, and where do you rank that as far as being something that's important in our life?
Well, you've got to have a goal. You've got to have a plan to get there. You've got to have measurable standards that how you're progressing.
Yes.
That's the only way we really move forward. Otherwise, life is pretty haphazard, and it happens to you rather than you make it happen.
Wow. See, I told you you're going to get some wisdom. There's wisdom behind that gray hair.
Hey, there's a backstory to me being here. I live way out in the country. In fact, the road ends at our house. And anyway, coming in, I understand we've got viewers from all over the world. So Bakersfield is now the 9th largest city in California.
Oh, really?
And it's booming so much that there's all this road construction trying to keep up. And you can't count on any ramp being open that you've always counted on. I come in and the ramp to your place here is closed. So I've got to go clear around, and you know how many bad choices you can make trying to get back to Holly Drive.
Right.
And so anyway, I finally get here, actually almost on time. Now I've got a choice. You said you're right at the corner of Polo and Bellfounder. Now I got two choices. I got the house across the street, or I got your house. And I look over, and there's a real cool avalanche. With real cool rims. I think that's got to be the one.
That's got to be Cedric.
Anyway, so I'm glad to be here and with all you folks around the world. This is so cool. Our world is growing smaller.
Yes.
And we're all in it together. And there's so many common problems and challenges and opportunities we're all facing together.
Yes.
And pretty cool.
And I like the way you said that. It said challenges and opportunities that we face together. And we see challenges as opportunities. And I know he's big on that. And if you don't see it that way, then you may want to get a second opinion. Because that's how you see it. We cannot grow in the absence of actual challenges in our life. In fact, I like to say it this way: success in the absence of struggle does not exist. And you can substitute struggle for challenges or any other stuff as well too. Failures. How you feel about failure? Watch this. How you feel about failure?
Well, it's a common maxim, but it sure proved true in my life that it's the failure where you learn.
Yes.
I started up a business and it failed, and I realized it failed before it ever started because I hadn't done the due diligence to understand what quite what the market was, what the competition was going to be, what the times were, and so it failed before it started. It kind of, what, Sun Tzu or the war is won or lost before it even begins.
Exactly. And I knew that it's going to have something profound to say on that for failure. I've always looked at failure, and I know he agrees with this, as feedback. It's a creative form of feedback of what to do or what not to do, and then you modify it along the way. And I've always said the truest form of failure is if you fail to learn the lesson in the failure. Because it's there to teach us a lesson, as he just stated. It's like, okay,
that's exactly right. Well said.
Thank you. I am, guys, for you just joining me, I'm riding shotgun with one of my favorite mentors, none other than the Don Clark. And I say the, capital T-H-E. And if you know him, you know why I capitalized the T-H-E before his name. And he's very humble with it. But, you know, he has been in the area of journalism for how many years?
Well, let's see. I started in about 50 years, a lifetime in journalism, all phases, radio, television, magazines, newspapers. I really cover the
whole gamut. Yeah, the whole gamut, guys. And when you hear this voice, I know whether or not if you're hearing us on the podcast and you can't see him, or if you're watching us live, you hear that voice. It's just the classic voice of, okay, today we're going to be welcome. This is you should even hear his greeting on his cell phone when you're calling. It's just like, hey, this is done. It's just like if you close your eyes, you can swear you see him on like Channel 6 or something. And but he's just a classic case of you know, overcoming some challenges along the way.
Let's stop talking about me. Let's talk about other.
I have to lay the groundwork for you here because some people can get the respect. He's Harvard educated. Can I say it?
Well, you said it.
I said it. I said it. He's been around the block, and I'm gonna say, in just anything that we do, you have to start out with some challenges. What was, if you could pick one thing, what was your biggest challenge when you said yes to the space of pursuing journalism when you first started? Because now,
I understand.
I know it's 50 years ago.
You know, all you teachers out there, this is how important a simple word from a teacher can be in a life. I was in a small college. I was pursuing a completely different career.
So you're gonna tell me the teacher's gonna give you a nugget?
Yeah. So he required an essay to be written on a certain subject. I wrote the essay, I turned it in, and after he graded them, he said, class dismissed. Don, would you just stay a few minutes afterwards?
Okay, Don, I want you to pause right there. Right. You hear that music? That means we got a break coming up. That's the perfect teaser. On the other side of this break, he said there's a teacher that gave him some type of nugget that helped him push him past the point into getting into this field that he stayed in for 50 years. Guys, I don't know if you get this, but you need to stick around to be able to hear what it was. Okay? I hope y'all with me. Going right from this commercial break. We're rolling with Don. We are. Yes, we are. Let's go. I see y'all. Welcome back, y'all. I'm showing a few pictures here just so you see Don out in his element and hanging out with me and the crew and such. If you're just joining us, I'm riding shotgun with this guy here. I see
that's my wife, Betty.
Betty, he talks about her like she's his better half. And so, yes, I'm excited. We teased you on the other side of that break as well, too. And I'm excited to hear what he had to say about this question of what was that challenge that he had early on. So if you're just joining us, stick around with it. Okay, pick up where you left off.
All right. There's a professor at this college I was at. His name was Willard Black. He was one of the younger class faculty members. In fact, he was more like one of us than one of them. And anyway, he said, stay after class. And we sat down, and I looked at my essay, and it was red marks all over it. But he said, Don, I think you have a gift for writing. And I think you should leave this college and go enroll in a journalism program.
Wow.
And journalism, I'd never thought about it, never considered it. But what I did was me and a couple friends started up a college newspaper. And by the time it was kind of testing the waters, you know, and by the time we were done, we had thousands of readers for our little publication.
Wow.
And it was kind of a signal. Okay. And then there was one other thing. There was a dynamic fellow by the name of W. Carl Ketcherside. He was a self-educated genius. Said he wrote for years. He read 1 book a day and 2 on Saturdays. But he'd come to our college, and I happened to be a Christian, and he challenged us to become commando Christians. And by what he meant by that is those who parachute down into enemy-held territory and work on behalf of an exiled king.
Wow.
And that so stirred my spirit that journalism is kind of enemy-held territory.
Right.
Really.
Right. It's like leaflets.
Yeah. And there was one other thing. When I worked for the Boston Globe, they put me through a full day of psychological and vocational testing. And one of the things they found out about me was that the shrink said, you have a strong streak of perversity in your character. And he said, put to good use.
Yes.
He said, that flaw in your character will allow you to function effectively for long periods of time in very negative environments.
Wow.
Welcome to journalism. You know, I mean, internally, it's
wow.
It's a negative environment.
Wow.
So anyway, all those things combined.
Yeah.
And then off I went to the University of Oregon.
So you left that school.
I left that school.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And off went to the University of Oregon, and that's where it all kind of
the journalism program. And then from there, I went back east to kind of finish up some work at that Ivy League school.
Right.
And I got hired at the Boston Herald. That was my start. So 1968, worst year for the Vietnam War. Kennedy had just been shot. Martin Luther King had just been shot. Harvard is just a boiling epicenter of anger and rebellion. And in fact, I knew I was sitting beside the guys that were building the bombs to bomb the federal building. And then I'd go into work on the subway, and they'd be assigned to go interview the head of security to protect the buildings against, I mean, it just was mind stretching and soul churning to live in that time.
And at that young age too, to be in that time.
Yeah.
And developing who you were, the roots and foundations of who you really were.
Yeah.
As a person in journalism.
Yeah.
Wow. And then to stick and stay.
Yeah.
For so long. For those of you who just joining me, I am with none other than the capital THE. I keep saying it. Don Clark. This guy's legendary in the area of journalism. He has retired after like 50 plus years in the area of journalism.
Well, let's just say my boss figured he could.
Oh, okay.
He could hire 3 young ones for 1 old one.
Oh, there we go. Look at that. Isn't that like, oh my goodness, guys. If you ever think that at any time in your life, job security is actually something serious,
no.
It's a myth, y'all.
No, it isn't. 50
years into space. And it's interesting because when I invited Don to come over, his first question was like, when you need me, and which I just love that about him. And I said, okay, it's okay. What's the agenda? Do we have a topic? I'm like, no. Everything you need to know is inside of you. We don't have any written down topic or agenda. It's just, we'll just park him here and watch what comes out. And here's what's just happened is that when we're talking about concepts of traditional jobs, workforce being a secure job being a myth, this is so true. This is textbook.
You know, I ended up at one point as when I was the news director and senior anchor at KEZI-TV in Eugene, I always argued that we needed a bureau up at the state capitol, which is about 60 miles up the road of Salem. Well, I finally got an invitation. The guy up there started an independent television station, asked me to be the anchor, and it was the dream job. I mean, Betty and I had just bought a 4,000 square foot home on the hilltop overlooking the city. We were the only station in town. People loved us. We were pushing Portland back to the city limits, you know.
Right.
And all of a sudden, so we were set. I mean, this was it. We just had our first grandchild. Mom and Dad lived just down the road in Eugene, and we could see each other all the time. I mean, as you say, you think you're set.
Right.
Think again. The Home Shopping Network sees our little station as a cheap back door to the Portland market. They lay a lot of money on the table. The boss grabs it and runs it. And 25 of us are out of work just like that.
Wow.
Just like that.
Guys, let that marinate. When you talk about thinking you're riding high in May and shot down in June, I mean, basically,
Yeah.
And that's a classic case of that. And then it's like, okay, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
Obviously, he pivoted to something positive because he moved on and kept going into space. That didn't sour him on the space. But that's just a classic case of how adversity is designed to actually make you better, push you to where you're not even expected to go.
Yeah.
Now, one of my favorite forms of adversity is self-inflicted adversity.
That's, you know, there is no more harsh punishment than consequences you deserve because of your own actions. I mean, you've got to look at that.
Say that again. Say that again.
No punishment is no more harsh than enduring consequences of your own creation. I kind of rephrase that.
I love it, though.
Look at that pen.
Yes. Hey, guys, you have permission to take notes, such as, you know, as I do. So I'm kind of leading the charge here.
Hey, I want to reflect on when we all lost our jobs. Every day I'd get up in the morning, I'd put on my suit, I'd go out hunting for a job. I made a job out of finding a job. And I traveled from San Diego to Seattle. I wanted to stay on the West Coast, knocking on every station's door. 6 months passed, nothing, no response. And all of a sudden, in the space of 24 hours, I mean, you got to do your part. You got to get out there and do your part. And I was so discouraged sometimes, you know, I thought, you know, if I took that bridge abutment head on, wow, I'd be more valued to my family than if I stayed on living, because I had $1 million worth of insurance. Wow. But anyway, I hung in there, and so we come to the end of 6 months. All of the unemployment insurance is gone, used up. Coming to the last check. All of the goodwill of the family is used up. And all of a sudden, we're talking God's faithfulness here. The phone rings, and I get a call, and it's an offer to be the senior news anchor in Spokane, Washington, at a legendary station, Cram. All the bells and whistles, top ratings, the whole thing. Wow. Then I get an offer to be the vice president for public information for the most profitable HMO in Oregon, Health Maintenance Organization. More money than I've ever made. Enough money to lease the Mercedes to keep up the image of the company. Right. Christmas bonuses of about $25,000. Wow. Yeah. Wow. And so that's sitting there, and I actually accepted that job. Okay. And when it was the tallest building in Salem. They take me up to my well-paneled office, and Cedric, I don't know, I walked into that office, and it was just like someone was cutting off my windpipe.
Hold it, on that thought. Guys, I am curious to what happened when he said yes to this job. But on the other side of this break, he's going to drop that nugget to us. So stick around with us, guys. We're riding shotgun with none other than the Don Clark. So stick with us. Let's go. Welcome back, my friends. Welcome back. Yeah, I know. Audience gets good. I know. You know, in the audience, you have people who clap and some who just can't clap. They have to make funny noises and stuff too. My audience is crazy, but I love them. So they laugh too. They do laughing. We want you to have fun while you get informed as well too. So we tease you on the other side of that break. If for those of you who are just joining us, I'm riding shotgun with one of my favorite mentors. His name is, I like to put the capital THE in front of it, the Don Clark. He is a retired journalist, news journalist. Is that the right?
Not by his own choice.
Not by his own choice. Forced retired news journalist after 50 years in the industry. And we're just talking about some of his challenges and such. And he was telling us about where he thought everything was going great at one news station, had the big house and the nice car and all of that dream. And then it got snatched out from underneath him. So he went on a hunt, checking and knocking on doors and looking to get into other employment. And at the point where he's run out of all of his resources, including the unemployment and such and family resources, and when he's at the 12th hour, and then the phone rings and he's given not one, but two options.
Yeah. And a third.
And a third.
So anyway.
That's where we at. Just caught you up.
So anyway, I walked into that cubicle and it was just like all the air sucked out of the room. I told the guy, I can't do this. And I left the building.
That same day?
That same moment.
Wow.
I just knew I didn't belong in a cubicle, no matter how well paneled.
Wow.
And so anyway, and then I'm talking to the guy in Spokane, and on the call interrupt comes this offer from Bakersfield, California, a rinky-dink station.
I got to laugh at that.
Ratings in the toilet, the worst money, the worst benefits, the worst everything. But you know that nudge you get in your spirit?
Yeah.
You know, I prayed, I counseled, and it said Bakersfield. I mean, the most unlikely thing. And all I remembered about Bakersfield is it seemed like the most desolate place I could. Anyway.
How many years ago was this?
This was about 32 years ago.
Okay.
So anyway, my wife was out of town, and but she knew the choices I had, and so I called her and I said, "Honey, I've made my decision." Well, surely it was going to be Salem, where we could stay there in Oregon. And I said, "Honey, it's Bakersfield." Dead silent. And then she says, "Give me a day to cry." And so what she didn't know was that we didn't have the money for me to drive down I-5 to show up for the job I just accepted. That's how broke we were.
Wow.
So I didn't want Betty to panic. So the last thing we did before I left to try to make my way down here was I took her to a friend's up in the Cascade who had an exotic animal farm. Yeah. Emus and all these exotics. And there was a raven named Diddley. And Diddley just flopped along and followed us everywhere we went. And if he could find something shiny to peck at, that's what he did. Finally, it's time to go. Diddley hops up on the hood of my big 9-passenger Buick station wagon. Yeah. I look like Fred McMurray. and he hops over to where the windshield wipers fall down under the hood. Yeah. And he starts pecking. And I paid no attention because he pecked at everything. No way. And Betty said, "What is he pecking? Is that a traffic ticket?" And Diddley pulls out this crumpled envelope and he starts to fly away with it. I jump up, I knock it out of his beak and it flutters to the ground and I straighten it out. And it's postmarked Seattle, Washington, 2 months ago. And so I open this thing up, and the only thing in that envelope was a birthday check from a friend of mine for $200. And he doesn't even remember giving it to me. No way. So I got to Bakersfield on the wings of a raven. Wow. Guys, I'm dumbfounded. I was too. God's faithful. Wow. Guys. God's faithful. Wow. I don't know if you guys, you're just joining me. This is the Don Clark. That's one of my favorite mentors. And he's sharing the stories of his journey in the 50 years in journalism and the blind sides, the left hooks, the uppercuts and such. Basically the gauntlet or minefield, if you will, of life. But does that surprise you? In making the choice, I thought, if I go to Spokane, I'm just going to be a maintenance guy. They're already at the top of the ratings. Right. They've already got everything. But if I go to Bakersfield and take this little crummy station and put it on my shoulders and carry it out from under the rubble, we would have really done something.
Yeah.
And so you got a result.
Wow. So I'm assuming that in Salem, you would have had an opportunity to make more money.
Yeah,
than the Bakersfield job.
Money.
Got it. But you said
this was the worst money done here.
Wow. But it was the best opportunity.
Well,
to grow something.
It was where that nudge in your spirit takes you. If you dare to follow that.
Yeah. What has tuned you into that over the years?
I'm sorry?
What has tuned you into recognizing that nudge? Because, you know, some people like associate it with gas or something.
I just try to follow. You know, I'm sure God speaks to you all out there in very different ways. But he speaks to me in those nudges. They're just little nudges. And if I ignore those, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And that's the way I try to live my life, is following those nudges and doing it. What I think is
doing his work.
Yeah.
Guys, I got to tell you this, whether you are a believer or not, there's a lot of value in what's being shared today of how adversity has no respect of person. It has a job to do. And that job is to make you better. In fact, adversity is an acronym, ADVERSITY. Here we go. Ability to develop via experiencing rough situations that involuntarily train you.
This is the global master of acronyms. Really?
Thank you. I take that as a compliment. I don't know if you remember, but you did an entry on the back of my first book. Okay. That was, it was my second book. It was volume 2, Breadcrumbs to Making It Great. And you said something similar to that. I don't know if you remember, because he does so much content writing. But on the back of here, you can see it, that his picture of his face, and he had an entry. He says, Cedric Crawford has a rare gift of taking the most important principles of life and masterfully distilling them down to the most memorable words and phrases. And so I was like, that came from Don. So I'm gonna applaud that, you know. So, and I tell you, I really, really appreciate the relationship I've had with the Don over the years. And for those of you who are on Facebook right now, watching this, you'll see that the picture that I have up on the screen is a group of me and Don and some other guys that are there that are part of our little group. That's just a few of them. There's so many more that's part of that group as well. If you see at the top, I say, if you're the only guru in your group, then you need to find another group.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
But I cherish that. And over the years, Don has put himself in different positions and spaces to be able to contribute in various spaces. Open Up Live with Don and Tina. If you're on Facebook, you're able to see this.
Hey, bring up my wife.
Oh, let me pull up. Okay, here we go. There's Betty.
You know, Betty, if Betty looks like Sophia Loren's sister.
Okay. For those of you who know Sophia Loren, that's her sister right there, look-alike. He's always dotes on her, and I just love the fact that he does that. It just makes me smile. Here's another shot here where we're hanging out doing PC, what I call power chat. Remember where we were at when we were doing that one?
Chicken place, wasn't it? Or
it was Jay's place.
Jay's place.
Southern food. Soul food. And I just enjoy those times and opportunities to be able to kind of glean stuff from him as well. Here's one photo that we actually took here. Looks like my system's slowing down on me here. Come on, don't play with me. Okay, it's playing with me, y'all. I'm stuck.
All right.
Well, we're gonna move on. But
hey, I want you to do something for me.
Yes.
When we come back on camera.
Okay. If we can get the transition back. There we go.
All right. Punch that laughter button, would you?
Okay.
I just read a really profound article about how there's so much phoniness in the world, and how there's so little authenticity.
Yeah.
And one of the things he mentioned was canned laughter. And he said we ought to just boycott shows that use canned laughter. Okay. That anything that's artificial, it was going overboard.
Yeah.
No problem here. But just saying that there's so much authenticity in the world that we ought to strive and make others strive to be real.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with you as well too. And then where people are, I like to say they have a public face and a private face too, and it tends to be incongruent with each other.
I have anchored with 18 women.
Wow.
Over the years.
Okay.
And some women, when they get in that anchor chair, I mean, they just become bitches. But the odd thing is, others just become nicer and nicer than they've ever been before. It's like something that's now fulfilled in them. Yeah. And they can just feel free. But you talk about one face on screen and one off screen.
In my experience, in all the walks of life that I've been through, I've observed, very observant, that the public face and the private face almost always is incongruent, in the majority of the cases. So people are put, especially when you're in a place where you are presented to the public. And so I don't name any categories, but yeah, so it's refreshing to see when people who are the same in front of the public than they are in the private as well too, as far as the sector, and being something that's perceived as positive. And you talked about laughing and how someone has said this canned laughing goes along with being inauthentic about what's real as far as laughter. If I had a real audience, I would not have a laughter button. I do not have. For those of you who don't know, this may be shocking news, but I don't have a real audience in here. And so the audience is you. And so I pump that in, and I do it for a reason. And that reason is to give you permission to say, hey, you can laugh.
Yeah.
And as I alluded to this earlier, I said, when you come to my events or I see you around, you're not shy about having fun and not being too serious. So this guy doesn't have a dill pickle face in his senior years. It's because he's actually been able to enjoy the years.
Maybe this might be helpful to some of you out there, but when I made the transition from newspapers to television, which was first of all, it seemed like the biggest mistake I ever made. It seemed like the most superficial thing I ever got into.
Wow.
Till you learn how much information you can pack into a minute 30 if you use the right video, the right words,
right,
you match it all together. Then it packs a real punch. But so at first I'm just a reporter, and then they fire the anchor man, San Francisco guy, and the boss calls me and he said, "Go home, get your suit on, you're it." So I rush home and I tell Betty, what are they going to do when they find out I've only got one suit? But anyway, I sit down, and for the first 6 months, being an anchor man on television, it just seems so phony to me. And I just, it was so unsatisfying. And I go to bed at night and I'd be very troubled. And then I figured it out. I said, I am trying to be Don Clark's idea of what an anchorman is.
Got it.
And I said, I'm going to sit down in that chair. I'm going to look in that camera. I'm just going to sit there and tell my friends the news.
And be
just me and them. And I said, and if that doesn't work, I don't need this job. And then it really started to roll, to just sit down, be yourself.
I hear that passion in your voice too, and it reminds me of the two most important letters in the alphabet, which is the letters B and U. It's being you, just saying, hey, because if you try to be somebody else, you can only be second best.
There's a little
at best
tag on my daughter-in-law's refrigerator. Said, "Be yourself. Everything else, everyone else is taken."
That's right. I heard that word too. That is so key too, guys. So if you haven't got a nugget so far, and the
nuggets just keep on coming.
That's right.
Give me some more. Let's go.
Yes, we will continue to rain some nuggets down here, my friends. If you're just joining me, my goodness, I am with none other than the Don Clark, the man. And he's one of my favorite mentors. Like I said, he has tons of content that he's creating too. I got a big question for him. coming up here. And when you hear this music, it's going to be on the other side of that news, this break here, guys. And I know his answer to this question is going to be pretty amazing. So stick around, guys, on the other side of this break. Here's Prince giving us a little break. Cream, cream, cream. Don't you stop. I love that song by Prince where he talks about how cream rises to the top, and he said he wrote that song in the mirror. He was looking in the mirror and he knew how much hard work he was putting into his career. You know Prince, the artist, Prince, and how much time he was putting in his career to, in his area of passion. And he was like, okay. And he needed some inspiration and motivation. So he said, I'm going to write this song to inspire me. And so he wrote for inspiring himself, but it, as a byproduct, it's an inspiration to everybody else that hears it.
Yeah.
So he's talking about how cream rises to the top. Cream, get on top. You're so good. Everything you do is success, you know, and just bumping himself up to be able to be a better service to others. And
well, you know, isn't it interesting? If you allow yourself to be great, you just naturally inspire others to rise to their own greatness.
Absolutely. It reminds me of that saying that the rising tide raises all ships.
Right.
And it's so true. And it said, guys, here's one of these times where I say, it's okay to be selfish for selfless reasons. Let me explain, because to what he just said, to his point, it's like, it's okay to equip, empower, educate. In other words, that start with E, that has to do with you becoming better today than you were yesterday. It's okay to do that so you can better be able to serve other people. And if you're moving toward becoming your best, think it not strange that others around you will not only have permission to seek to be their best, but you help them to make yourself better as well too. I remember when I played football back in the day and I was a backup, I wasn't perceived as being like really good and making really good plays until I became a starter and was surrounded around other people who were really good. And then it took my stock up and I was able to play at a better pace and be more effective and efficient because I was surrounding myself with people who were also working toward perfection as well too. You got any thoughts on that?
I think of that word humble. People think people should be humble, but I heard a definition that said humility is not bowing down and being less than you are for the sake of other people. It's rising to your full potential and then measuring yourself against something far higher, which for me would be the example that Jesus set for us in the world and how to live. Wow,
guys, I don't know if you're taking notes. I'm gonna actually go back and watch this, but I'd like to be able to do this in front of y'all so y'all can see that you can actually take notes. Humility is not bowing down, but it is actually
to be less than you are.
To be less than you are, yes. Bowing down. Oh, wow.
But rising to your full potential and measuring yourself against something far greater.
Wow. Okay, guys, if you're not getting this, I mean, this nugget is huge.
These nuggets are the bomb. Thank you very much.
Guys, just for y'all who just showing up, yes, this is episode number 351.
351.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Recorded on the day, January 7th of this year, 2020. And I think, and again, as we started this episode, we were talking about the importance of, this is not just any old year. This is actually the transition into a new decade. And I think back on all the decades that have come before this one, I don't think there's one that has ever spoke specifically to your vision as 2020 and how important vision is. Because even from a leadership standpoint, you have to have those 5 C's in order to be perceived as someone that's influential as a leader. I'm going to share those 5 with you. I would say on the other side of this dance break, but we just had one. So I'm going to drop them on you, and I know he's probably going to agree with me because some of them I kind of got from him.
Let's hear them.
One of them, from the top, drum roll. Clarity. Your vision of you being able to see it, so when the fog of fear and frustration starts to descend, which is not a question of if, it's just when and will. When will it happen to you, and will you be prepared? So that clarity of vision, being able to say, hey, I can see. Next one, confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence or courageousness, it goes along with that too. It's courage
right.
to be able to say, hey, I know what's before me, and I know what's behind me,
right.
but I know who's beside me.
Yeah, there you go.
And so you can move with confidence through that actual space and say, hey, I have this confidence to be able to do this. Here's the next thing, the C of consistency. It's not enough to just get started, but it's to stick and stay, because a lot of people don't stick around long enough doing the right stuff in order for their success to show up, whatever that looks like. And quite often, I can actually go on a little rabbit trail there, but I won't, but I'll stay with these C's. So that C is for its consistency, saying, I will stick, I will stay. The next one is you have to be committed, a commitment to saying, I'm going to stay this course no matter what. I'm going to persist. Because again, negativity and the stuff of life, here's another acronym for you, STUFF, stuff of life, situations that uncover fear or faith.
Right.
That's the stuff of life. It's going to come, but do you have the tools to be able to deal with that stuff? Because stuff doesn't just happen to you. It happens to all of us. You heard his stuff and how he was able to pivot to the positive and get past that. So being committed to that is very, very important. And then the fifth, and I think it's just as important as these other four. If you don't have this fifth one, my friends, you are in a heap of trouble. So what is this last C as in terms of being that influential leader or that great leader? I'll tell you on the other side of this break, y'all. I got a teaser for the last one. I am riding shotgun. I see you on Instagram. You guys stick around. All right. Welcome back. I am right. Okay, my audience. A show to do, y'all. Y'all too loud. Okay. For those of you just joined us, I'm with none other than the capital T-H-E, Don Clark. He is I gotta call him the honorable journalist, retired journalist after 50 years in the space, and being able to see that face and hear that voice, and he has gleaned so much in that space to be able to share with other people, and also his stories of being able to pivot along the way as well too. I just teased you on the other side of that break. I said I was going to give you the 5 C's that leads to being that influential leader, that great leader. That one, just to recap before I give you the 5th one. That one, we started with clarity, your vision, very important. Next one, confidence or courageousness, whatever you want to look at as well as with that. Next one was you being consistent. You have to be consistent and stay the course. Next one, committed, being committed, saying, hey, I know this is the thing. Then the last one, drum roll. At the end of the day, my friends, the other 4 important. If you don't have this 5th one locked down on the key, you're going to struggle a little bit. You have to be absolutely certain. Yes, it starts with a C. Certain that this is your space, this is your calling, this is your area of passion, this is that thing that makes you come alive, this is that heart's virtue. This is the thing that God has uniquely designed you for, because you're not 1 in a million. You're not even 1 in a billion. You're one of a kind. Yeah. And so those 5 things, 5 C's are so classic to be able to be embodied. Your thoughts?
Let me add a footnote.
I do. I should say this. So he's got a footnote. Here we go.
My hero growing up as a boy was Oregon Senator Mark Hatfield. Served in the legislature. He served Secretary of State. He served 2 terms as governor and 6 terms in the Senate. He was known as the conscience of the Senate. And anywhere he'd speak, I'd drive to hear him. But anyway.
What was his name again?
Mark Hatfield.
Mark Hatfield.
And he was considered the most handsome man in Washington, the most eligible bachelor. But anyway, so I aspired to follow in his footsteps. And I wanted to be a great leader. And so I took the he took. I ran for Oregon Secretary of State, which is the 2nd highest office in the state.
Wow.
We don't have a lieutenant governor. It's also a shadow governorship. And I exercised all of those C's that you just said. Okay. And in fact, I even bought the chair I was going to sit in my office when I was alone. But anyway, it came down to I think it was a Thursday or a Friday before the Tuesday election. All right, and so I just gotten off the phone of raising the last $5,000 I was going to raise for my campaign.
Yeah.
And I turned to my campaign manager and I said, boy, I sure hate to do this for a living. And he looked at me like I just said the stupidest thing he had ever heard. And he said, Clark, I've got news for you. If you win this thing, that is what you're going to be doing for a living. And the shock of that, I mean, the obvious that somehow I'd overlooked. And it was just like someone just threw a bucket of cold ice water in my face. And I just said, I don't want to do that for a living.
Right. Which is raising money.
Yeah.
For campaigning.
That's what politics is today. Raising money for your next election.
Wow.
That's what it is. And that's what it's come down to. Terrible development, but that's where we are.
Wow.
And and it's just like that office that I could see so clearly, me sitting there, exercising benevolent authority.
Yeah.
It just began to recede into a little dot like a mirage and disappeared. And on election night, it was so strange. I mean, I just felt distant from the whole thing. It
wasn't what you thought.
It wasn't what I thought. And so the lesson might be, you might be very clear about what you think you want, but it may not be the right thing.
Yeah.
When you come right down to the reality of it, it may not be the right thing.
Guys, this is a huge nugget, and I'm not.
These nuggets got me licking my fingers. Can I please get a few more, please?
I know. Guys, this is a huge nugget. And the biggest thing I'm taking away from him sharing that and saying that, what you think may be what it's going to be, it's almost like, the fantasy or the allure of what you think, it's almost always doesn't end up being what you envision. Now, is it still not worth it in some cases? No, I'm not saying that, but just understand that that's true. Now, I think the biggest thing when that happens, and I don't know, I'm gonna get your take on this. The biggest thing is when that happens is, do you have the courage to pivot to the next thing?
Yeah. That tape had to play out in my head to the finish. I had to play out me being the next Mark Hatfield.
Yeah.
I had to get over that.
Yeah.
But that's where I got over.
That's where you got it when that seed dropped.
Yeah.
Says, I cannot see myself doing this, and I'm going to exit. I think often is the case where people feel like, they push past that, and then they kind of pigeon themselves or dig in like Texas ticks into those spaces that they really don't enjoy.
Well, when you're trying to figure out, is this God's will for me? And at the start, I said, all right, I formed these concentric circles. Yeah. And I said, if I get one no at any point along the way, I'm out.
Yeah.
And so this concentric circles were, will my wife approve? And she'd always say, I don't want to be a politician's wife. But when I said Secretary of State, she said, that sounds right to me. I was amazed. Then my children, they were teenagers. Are you willing to bear whatever consequences? Oh, yeah, cool. Go for it, Dad.
Yeah.
And then the third thing was my circle of brothers that I met with all the time. And they took this very seriously. They called in my potential campaign manager and they grilled him and then they gave their approval. And then there's one other that I can't remember right now. But all I remember was I needed a certain big sum of money by a certain date. And I said, Lord, I have deadlines and you do too.
Yes.
So if I don't have this amount of money in the bank on this date, I'm out.
Wow.
And as the date approaches, we weren't even close. We weren't even close. And I thought, well, here it goes. But all of a sudden, on the day that it was out, my wife steps into, I was on the anchor desk, and my wife stepped in the back of the studio and she went. And at that moment, I knew I was a candidate for Secretary of State of Oregon. The money came last night. So I knew, God showed me I should run, but he didn't promise me I would win. And he used that process to kind of purge all of that political ambition out of me.
Wow. Wow. Amazing story. And as a mentor of mine, I know that he has tons of other stories that we haven't even been able to scratch the surface on today. But man, we're right up against that hour of dropping some nuggets with you guys. And I want to just take this opportunity to be able to say thank you to Don for coming out. And this is definitely, if there ever been one that's replay worthy, this one's a replay worthy. And if there's ever been one that's share worthy, this one is share worthy, to be able to share this out to other people, because there's some people who couldn't sign on here live. I see you guys, Michael Willis and Chris Hopkins, and let me see, Darlene, Dixon Coomer. Hey, my man, good to see you. Here's a name here. Let me see, Nazrifij Aniv. She says, hey, Don, it's Vina. I don't know if you recognize the name. She says, hey. Ramona Crawford, hey, welcome. Stephen Elcano, good to see you. Diane Beebe, Tim Gamboa, Patrick Crawford, that's my youngest brother. Eli Patterson says, Sad has had to help me be floating in the past, and I'm grateful for brothers like, hey, thank you, brother. Eli, thank you. Mike Lyons, good to see you. Jeff Teeters, Chuck Fear, all of you guys, thanks for coming out. I can't say all of y'all because there's just too many of you. But here's what I will say. I hope you got some good nuggets. I love this song.
Yeah,
it reminds me of saying, hey, blessed are you that say, and God knows we need the prayer. We ain't perfect, but then name a country that is. Try that one on the side. So we need a lot of prayer. You guys, if you're praying prayers, keep praying to keep us on the right track and make the right decisions for what we do. I see the love. I see you guys sending hearts and thumbs up. I appreciate that. At this point, we're gonna sign it off and pass it on over.
Hope you found some value in this. Good to be with you guys. And
yes.
God bless for the
yes.
decade.
Yes. Until next time, my friends, this is MrMakeItGreat.com saying, hey, we only get one shot at this life, my friends. No mulligans. So let's not make it good. Let's make it absolutely great. We'll catch you on the next one. Love, peace, and chicken grease. And I promise. So you guys.